It's time for Mornings at 8 with Jonathan Mark on AM 1480 WLEA.
Oh, yes it is, and it is 8:05, and off we go. Well, this is Thursday, practically Friday. Not exactly, but pretty close. So one more day, and there you go. There is the weekend. And let's hope it's just a little drier than it's been. You know, the flowers are enjoying all this rain. Oh, yeah, they're really having a good time. But unfortunately, so is the lawn. And every time I go to mow the lawn, it starts raining. Or it just rained and it's wet. And you can't mow a wet lawn. Or you can, but it's not going to look... It's going to look like a bad haircut or something. So, yeah, that's what this rain is doing. And it just keeps raining and raining and raining. Okay, fine. Well, let me see here. As you heard on Brian's News... Congressman Tom Reed had some words about the state issuing driver's licenses to illegal immigrants.
Licenses from countries that now clerks are supposed to be able to recognize their citizenship, or I'm sorry, strike that, their documentation when it comes to prior driver licenses and things like that. You know, what about an individual who's got a history of drunk driving in these foreign countries? How is a clerk supposed to know that this individual has that type of driving record that could put fellow citizens and people of New York State at risk?
So that was Congressman Tom Reed, and he was expounding on what he said on Brian's newscast there. And county clerks, I think I read this morning there were at least a half dozen, possibly a half dozen, that are against the idea, because they're going to have problems trying to verify who these people are and where they came from and if they are really who they say they are. So it's going to be a problem in New York State, and some of them say that I'm not going to do it and I don't care what happens. So that's how county clerks feel about this. It's going to be a mess, absolutely. And speaking about kind of a mess, you've heard about the plan, or they're talking about this plan, to make reparations for slavery. And that's been in the news a lot, and it's going to be in the news a lot more in the coming months, especially with the 2020 election coming up. The idea is that the United States should pay descendants of slaves because their ancestors were slaves. And there's a panel going on, at least it met yesterday in Washington. It's a Democratic panel to open debate on reparations for slavery. Now, I'm trying to dovetail two stories here, and the type is really small. I think this is probably 3-point type. And if you had a magnifying glass or possibly a microscope, you might be able to read this. So I'm trying to dovetail these two stories, neither of which is really easy to read. So, after more than a decade, this is from AP. After more than a decade's absence, the case for reparations is returning to Capitol Hill. This time amid a growing discussion in the Democrat Party about what the country might owe to the descendants of slaves in the United States. Actor and activist Danny Glover and writer Ta-Nehisi Coates testified at a hearing Wednesday on the panel. The stated purpose is, quote, to examine through open and constructive discourse the legacy of the transatlantic slave trade, its continuing impact, and the path to restorative justice. Coates triggered fresh public debates about reparations with his essay, The Case for Reparations, and that was published in the Atlantic magazine in 2014. He said in an interview he was reluctant to testify but felt some responsibility to make that case before Congress. He said, one of the things I was trying to do when I wrote that was to get people to stop laughing, Coates said. Right now, this is a moment. I think folks are really clear about that right now. That doesn't mean it's going to get fixed next week. Now, reparations has been moving through the mainstream of the Democrat Party after long being treated as a sort of a fringe issue. Several of the party's presidential candidates have endorsed looking at the idea, although they have stopped short of endorsing direct payouts for African Americans. Yet the idea remains far from widely accepted, both among Democrats and the public at large. In fact, a Marist poll taken in 2016 found that About 7 in 10 Americans said the country should not pay cash reparation to African American descendants of slaves to make up for the harm caused by slavery and racial discrimination. About 8 in 10 white Americans said they were opposed to reparations, while about 6 in 10 black Americans said they were in favor. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said that he opposes reparations. He told reporters, "I don't want reparations for something that happened 150 years ago. We've tried to deal with the original sin of slavery," that's his words, "with the original sin of slavery by passing civil rights legislation and electing an African-American president, Barack Obama. It would be hard to figure out who to compensate for slavery," he said. "No one currently alive was responsible for that. And when you think of it, it's probably true. Because, let me see, slavery ended officially in the 1860s. This is 2019. Probably no one alive now was either a slave or a slave owner." And that's his reasoning. The debate over reparations for black Americans began not long after the end of the Civil War and was long defined as financial compensation for ex-slaves and their descendants. Opponents of the reparations often frame the issue as an unfair solution that places the blame or burden of the legacy of slavery on white Americans who were not alive at the time and were therefore not responsible. Supporters point to racial disparities across American society as proof that while whites living today were not responsible for what came before, they have nonetheless reaped the rewards. And at yesterday's hearing, Quillette, it's I guess a website or a paper, Quillette writer Coleman Hughes trashed the bill to study slavery reparations as a mistake, forcing the chair of the hearing to tell the audience to chill several times. The hearing Wednesday was called H.R. 40 and the Path to Restorative Justice. H.R. 40 is a bill which proposes a commission to study reparations. Hughes testified for the minority and delivered a lengthy opening statement against the bill in question, after noting that nothing I'm about to say is meant to minimize the horror and brutality of slavery and Jim Crow, and that he considers our failure to pay reparations directly to freed slaves after the Civil War to be one of the greatest injustices ever perpetrated by the U.S. government. And he went on for quite some time. Oh, Mr. Coleman, or Mr. Hughes, by the way, is black. The audience booed him after he said black people don't need another apology. We need safer neighborhoods and better schools. We need a less punitive criminal justice system. We need affordable health care. And none of these things can be achieved through reparations for slavery. Not everyone close to me told me, nearly everyone close to me told me not to testify, he said. And he added, they told me that even though I have only ever voted for Democrats, I would be perceived as Republican and therefore hated by half the country. Others told me that by distancing myself from Republicans, I would end up angering the other half of the country. I guess he can't win. And the sad truth is that both were right. And that's how suspicious, he says, we have become of one another. And that's how divided we are as a nation. He went on to describe reparations as not just divisive, but an insult to many black Americans by putting a price on the suffering of their ancestors. And we would turn the relationship between black Americans and white Americans from a coalition into a transaction. And Hughes then said that reparations by definition are only given to victims. So the moment you give me reparations, you've made me into what? A victim without my consent. Not that you've made 1/3 of black Americans who poll against reparations into victims without their consent, and black Americans have fought too long for the right to define themselves to be spoken for in such a condescending manner. The question is not what America owes me by virtue of my ancestry. He said the question is what all Americans owe each other by virtue of being citizens of the same nation. Hughes said, and the obligation of citizenship is not transactional. It is not contingent on ancestry. It never expires and it can't be paid off. For all these reasons, H.R. 40 is a mistake. At which point, the audience started to boo. And boo. And they kept on booing. And the hearing chairman, Steve Cohen, banged the gavel and said, chill, 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 chill. And as the chamber quieted, Cohen added, he was presumptive, but he still has a right to speak. So that's how that hearing's going. And as I said, as the election gets just a little closer, the 2020 election, this is going to be a big issue. It has been for quite some time. Okay, and from that we go to, all right, where to get this from? Fox News. College student cries bias after receiving hello in Japanese from a worker at a campus restaurant. Boy, how we have become so touchy. Can't we say or do anything anymore? I mean, is that how this? Okay, stop. Easy, chill. Here we go. A restaurant staffer at the University of Minnesota was reported to the campus bias response team recently. A campus bias response team for the mistake of saying hello in Japanese to an Asian American student. The greeting by the female employee reportedly confused the student, who I suppose was easily confused, and the staffer then asked the student where they were from. It remained unclear if the employee was Japanese. Wisconsin, the student replied, prompting the employee to laugh it off and wish the student a good day. But apparently that wasn't good enough. The student was apparently offended by the interaction and urged the campus's bias response team to address such, quote, microaggressions and other acts of what the student viewed as implicit bias. And these type, okay, here's a student. Okay, the student wrote this. These type of microaggressions occur too often on campus. This implicit bias needs to be addressed. The bias team reportedly acted immediately and referred the incident to the restaurant's management. The student, meanwhile, was referred to the campus ethical advocate program in the event if they want to talk further about the experience. So if the student was too traumatized, he could talk to the ethical advocate program. Okay, let me see. According to the College Fix, this wasn't the only complaint to the bias response team in the fall of 2018. A total of 51 such complaints have been filed by students. Have they nothing better to do than file complaints? I'm just asking. Okay, at least 17 of those complaints were filed against the university's college Republicans, particularly after they put up a display reading Trump 2020 and Make the U Great Again. So 17 of the complaints were against college Republicans. All right. While at certain higher education institutions, complaints to the bias response team, I've got to look that up. The bias response team can lead to dire consequences. The University of Minnesota counterpart doesn't appear to have taken strict disciplinary actions against the so-called offenders. So that's what's going on in that university, the University of Minnesota. So I guess they're pretty touchy up there. Okay, speaking about pretty touchy and microaggressions and this and that, I have another story here. This is from today, right? Yes. It says here, millennials explain why they don't use doorbells anymore. All right. In the old days, in other words, a few years ago, that's right, people would ring a doorbell to announce their arrival at a friend's house, right? You know what a doorbell sounds like, right? Well, you flash forward a few years, and suddenly doorbells seem as archaic as pagers or typewriters. And in the case of what else is new, people are blaming millennials for the death of doorbells as we once knew them. Poor millennials, they're blamed for everything now. I do that too. I shouldn't. Anyway, it all started when a Twitter user, what's the name? @Young and Joven. Whoever or whatever, anyway, it was somebody on Twitter. And they posed the following question to the social media. Can someone write an article on millennials killing the doorbell industry by texting here? Well, if you're not guilty of this habit yourself, allow us to fill you in. Rather than ringing a doorbell when they arrived, many people now simply text the word here from the front door or from the comfort of their car if they're picking someone up. And this simple yet insightful musing from Young and Joven rapidly resonated with Twitter users. And the tweet, yep, okay, fine. And the tweet quickly garnered over 100,000 retweets and over 500,000 likes. Twitter users couldn't help but explain their surprising distaste for doorbells. There's one here that said, this is funny, most apartments don't have doorbells. Okay, that was one. And another one said, I can agree to this because we still have our doorbell out that has been broken for over 10 years. Well, you probably really ought to fix that doorbell. But let me see. And the one that really got my attention was, this one says, the doorbell legit scares me now. I jump every time. It just seems so aggressive now when you could just text. Now, if you think that a doorbell ringing is aggressive, what must your life be like? I mean, it's got to be a pretty frightening place out there if you're scared by a doorbell ringing. But anyway, so, here we are. So somebody lives in fear of the doorbell ringing. All right, well, hey, stay inside, lock the door, pull the shades, and be very afraid. Okay, many people agreed on one thing. Texting is often easier when you're picking someone up. And then, let's face it, it says here in the story, ringing a doorbell is kind of old-fashioned anyway. Okay, so there we are. So they're scared by doorbells, and it's too aggressive. Maybe a microaggression, maybe a macroaggression. I have no idea. What about a knocking on a door? I mean, if a doorbell would scare you, imagine what a knock on your door would sound like. Wow, it would ruin your entire day. Okay, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Eddie Garcia.
Checking NBA news on the eve of the NBA draft. The Memphis Grizzlies traded veteran guard Mike Conley to the Utah Jazz for Grayson Allen, Kyle Korver, Jay Crowder, and the 23rd pick in Thursday's draft, as well as a protected first-round pick in 2020. Milwaukee Bucks All-Star forward Chris Middleton's declining his $13 million player option for next season. He will become an unrestricted free agent. In baseball games of note, the Yankees crushed the Rays 12-1. New York sweeps the series from Tampa Bay and moves 3.5 games up on the Rays for first in the AL East. The Cubs beat the White Sox 7-3, while the Brewers fell to the Padres 8-7. Chicago now holds a half-game lead on Milwaukee as they take back the top spot in the NL Central. Braves over the Mets 7-2, while the Phillies were swept in a doubleheader in D.C. by the Nationals by scores of 6-2 and 2-0. Atlanta now with a 4-game lead on Philadelphia atop the NL East. And the Dodgers down the Giants 9-2. L.A. becomes the first team in the major leagues this season to hit the 50-win mark.
New to golf or seasoned veteran, you'll enjoy the casual, relaxed atmosphere of Vanderview Golf Course. 2 miles from downtown Alfred on Waterwells Road, Vanderview is a 9-hole executive-length golf course with a driving range on one side of the road and the course on the other. Family-friendly and fun recreation for everyone. Greens fees are one price for unlimited play, $9.50. High school students, only $5. Children 12 and under with an adult, no charge. You can play up to 18 holes or 9 holes with a cart and get the second 9 holes at no additional charge. Ladies and senior golfers who don't hit the long ball, Vanderview's got the executive length that's just right for your game. And new this year, a season pass for only $100. That's a lot of golfing fun for a very little bit of money. Vanderview Golf Course, 2 miles from downtown Alfred on Waterwells Road. Vanderview Golf Course.
From the Fox Business Network, the Federal Reserve did not change interest rates at its meeting yesterday, but left open the possibility it could lower interest rates if it sees weakness in the economy. The Renault-Nissan Alliance and Google's sister company Waymo will work together on self-driving technology for Japan and France. The deal could later expand to other countries. Workplace software company Slack will sell shares to the public today. It's a direct listing, which means previously issued shares will trade. Slack will list on the NYSE under the ticker symbol WORK. Taco Bell is extending its free taco promotion through today because of High Traffic Tuesday that left some customers without the freebie. It could only be redeemed through the app or website. The Dow was up 38 yesterday, the Nasdaq gained 33, and the S&P was up 8. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Jenny Cosola.
Prescription products require an online physician consultation and are only available if the physician determines a prescription is appropriate. See website for full details.
Hey guys, good news. The expensive Little Blue pill is now generic, which means you can get the prescription medication to treat ED at affordable prices. And now get your first month's supply for just $5 at 4hims.com/Chris. Hims connects you with real doctors online who can prescribe the medication, and a pharmacy sends it right to your door. So easy. To get your first order for just $5, you need to go to 4hims.com/Chris. That's 4hims.com/Chris.
Today at Simmons Rockwell Ford, drive away in a new Ford F-150 lease for only $339 a month. A new 2019 F-150 STX Crew Cab 4x4 equipped with a 2.7 V6 EcoBoost engine, running boards, 20-inch alloy wheels, lease with no money down and Ford Trade Assist for $339 a month for 36 months. Only tax and DMV fees are due at signing. Shop Simmons-Rockwell.com.
Okay, and we are back. Now, we need something on the upside here. That's enough really dumb stuff. Yosemite, have you ever been to Yosemite Park? If not, you've probably seen photographs of it or maybe some thing on TV or something. That huge granite cliff, anyway, it's a solid piece of granite. El Capitan is a solid piece of granite, here we go, 3,000 feet tall. It is a big rock. I mean, a big rock, a sheer cliff. Just it's vertical. And a lot of rock climbers climb El Capitan. And they're all adults, right? Some people, I don't understand why. I have been in Yosemite and I've seen that, and why anybody in their right mind would want to climb that, I just have no idea. But here is a story. A 10-year-old girl has climbed El Capitan. And she did it with her dad. What's her name? Selah Schneider may have just become the youngest person in history to climb the park's 3,000-foot high rock formation, reaching the summit on June 12th of this year. Now, she was aided by her father and a family friend. The trio spent 5 days in Yosemite Valley using a rope climbing technique known as jumaring to tackle a famously steep route known as the Nose. So this kid climbed El Capitan, a 10-year-old girl. And there's a photograph over here, and there's nothing extraordinary. It's just a little spindly little 10-year-old girl. But she climbed it. Our motto, let me see, she told, a radio or TV station in Fresno. Okay, KFSN. She says, our big motto was, how do you eat an elephant? Small bites, one pitch at a time, one move at a time, one day at a time. And that's how they climbed this. And she comes from a family of hikers who developed a special connection to Yosemite trails. Her father, Mike, is a climbing instructor and claims to have fallen in love with Schneider's mother, Joy, while hiking in Yosemite years prior. And Schneider's father posted about the accomplishment on his company's Instagram account, garnering hundreds of likes and comments applauding his daughter's singular accomplishments. Now, a little 10-year-old girl climbing that, as I said, I've seen this thing, and why anyone would want to I don't know. But it's quite something. And another thing, too, is if you're a father, would you, I guess, I don't know. You want to do something with your daughter, right? It's very important to be, father and daughter type thing. But I guess he had to have a lot of trust in his daughter. Because, would you allow your 10-year-old kid to go climbing that? But he did, and she made it, and I guess it's, a major accomplishment. Wow. Unbelievable. As I said, just standing there and looking at it seems impossible. And this little 10-year-old kid did it. Wow. Okay, I was going to tell you about the attack squirrel. Maybe I'll wait until tomorrow morning. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.